Okay. So, welcome everyone. So, I didn't tell you this, Jennifer, but this is kind of like the inaugural podcast here. So, in real form, it's like we're just going to go with the flow. We're just going to drop in and just kind of drop into just, yeah, the overall experience, I think, of this sort of relationship that we've had moving and
Right.
this mentorship that we got. But I wanted to kind of set a little bit of a backdrop here for
Okay.
everybody listening, just because I think it's important. And then I would love for you to kind of share your story inside of it. But, obviously here I have as my guest Jennifer Puglisi, and she is really iconic in the real estate industry. She's been a real estate broker for 20 years. And she's been with the Remax franchise and has a national sort of name for herself because what she's been able to accomplish. And if that were not enough, you also have, I think, mentored so many people in the industry, taught them about your buy and hold strategy of owning real estate long term. And in that, developed an extensive portfolio. I mean, I was really impressed to find out the amount of doors that you manage, over 108, and and given almost 50% all free and clear. I mean, that's astonishing. That is quite an accomplishment. And you run also a property management division in order to facilitate that, or escrow company. I mean, you're kind of a serial entrepreneur, and also now with the financial architects and launching that mortgage. I mean, you really have covered all the different areas. And so I think from that standpoint, I mean, you really are quite prolific when it comes to real estate and what you've been able to accomplish. Two beautiful daughters as well.
Thank you.
One of them who I have a quite a fondness, because I think she was the bridge for us.
Yes.
She was really sort of the individual that sort of brought us together. She went through the mentorship as well, and then I think you seeing, her transformation and her sort of evolution happening, then so you kind of piqued your curiosity because as we've talked about, we were orbiting each other's
Yes, we
field for
were.
many, many years. We'd run into each other in restaurants and see each other in the local area together. And everything, as you know, is always in God's divine plan, divine timing. And I would like to kind of just launch it off into that there because I think this situation was in divine timing.
Mhm.
When I posted about this, I said it kind of like you kind of had a forced situation that made you say, okay, let me kind of reassess, these areas of my life. And I think that was started with the ankle situation.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I'd love for you to really explain to people and share with them, how this journey really began with going inwards and seeking the giving business soul sort of, philosophy and the curriculum of the round table.
Thank you for that introduction. I
Mm.
feel just, very blessed. I mean, wow, thank you.
Of course.
And it's so funny. I was telling you, I think before we began that, pretty much all the time I talk about real estate.
Hmm.
So, I'm always talking about real estate, living real estate. I can get up and talk all day long to hundreds of people, whoever, about real estate,
Sure.
all the time. And then coming over here, and I never get nervous about it. Like I never feel any nervousness or anything. And coming here, I felt like the little flutters, right?
Hmm.
Those like those flutters that I
Hmm.
had 20 years ago when I began in real estate. And I realized as I was, contemplating all of that, it's because of the vulnerability I think that something like this requires. And a lot of the time, especially, for me in business, I wasn't used to tapping into that side of myself. So I want to start out by saying I'm going to try to, throughout this, I didn't, prepare.
Sure.
I knew we were going to come in and have a conversation, but it's trying to explain the unexplainable in a sense, but I'm going to do my best to do that. The curriculum that I just finished.
Hmm.
So here is the beauty in that is that you have devised a platform where it places that unexplainable, right? That feeling, that knowing into an actual curriculum. And what that does for people, what that did for me, is it took me through a lot of challenges, but it made it so that I was understanding what was happening during that process. So people can go out and say that they, want to do the work and they want to dive in, but you've taken it and you've made it so so profound in each module, and put that curriculum in place as a roadmap, so that people can begin at one location and then be guided to the end. And that's beautiful, because it is really hard to do. It is hard to place something like that into a curriculum, and you've done it. So I just want to start by saying
thank you for that.
This, and you're right, we've been, orbiting each other for quite a while. And as they say, when the student is ready, I think the teacher appears. And thank you for being one of my greatest teachers and mentors throughout this process. I just, I'm in gratitude. And I was not vibing, I feel, in that place when we were sort of orbiting, each other's field or area, to even be in a place to understand and, receive certain things that I've dove into recently. And so that was part of it as well. I think the introduction with my daughter, but I think also being in that place where you're able to see and, wanting to do is kind of where I reached. And it was my ankle. It was this ankle in particular. Right. It was the right one. And you know what, Francisco, what I realized when I broke my ankle, because, I know that people are sick and tired of me talking about it. I get that, because they're like, when is this woman going to just stop mentioning her ankle? It's true. But it was life-changing for me, because it forced me to pause, and it took everything that I thought I was away from me. Meaning reliable, strong, independent, able to drive, go places, even network, show up. I was in pain, and then suddenly I found out, and I looked around at what was around me, who was around me, what was I doing, how was I, all of these things flooded in. And so the journey really began. The journey really began, and that was a year and a half ago. A year and a half ago. And it was a very painful one, but it saved my life, is the way that I like to look at it. It saved my life because, it changed my life. And I think that's what a lot of people are maybe not aware of.
Yeah.
Is when everything is sort of taken away from you, and you call it during the process of going through the round table, kind of like a dark night of the soul, right? And in part of that, I remember you saying that we will never stay there. We will always move through it. Well, thank God I did.
Yeah,
to a
certainly.
Thank God I did. But that is how all of this began.
Wow.
Was that freak accident and me.
Quotations, yeah.
Yes, that freak accident and me being forced. And, there's people that they're not forced. They have an awareness, and they realize what needs to be done. And then there's some of us where we're just plugging along life, and we never realize what needs to be done internally. And so I have so much more to say, about that, but I'll let you get a word in.
That's really good. I think that kind of gives me some direction to go with, because you're absolutely right. Some people look, because it's very clear. I mean, the world is shifting. There's some great transitioning. People are waking up, and some individuals, just by happenstance, are being guided a little bit more internally. They get it. But I feel that there is a huge portion of the population that I think that my assessment especially is that when people are very successful, you're doing really well from a society standard. What society values is getting to the top of industry, and when that is going on, it's very challenging to come to someone and say, "Hey,
Right.
you need to develop." You're like,
Mhm.
how much do you make, right? But it's because
Yes.
money is such a great spiritual teacher. As you know, it really teaches us a lot about ourselves. It's a magnifying glass in so many ways. And so I feel like in your specific situation, life needed to communicate it in the way that it did,
Mhm.
and by great grace, you took the message and you started to work inside of that process. And again, it was sort of a little bit of a forced situation. And then I feel like the young generation, my son is very similar to your daughter, and the fact that they have an advanced template
They do.
already installed. Okay, like us, Gen X's, like, the template is not as smooth,
Yes.
and it
Yes.
takes more sort of refining of it because we were so deep in the matrix construct,
We were. Yes.
and so to kind of clean out all the deconditioning of mother, father, state, and religion, and church per se, like it takes a while to kind of polish that out, where our
Yes.
children, they're just kind of set. They're going, "You guys are crazy. What are you doing?" And as parents, I think that like we want to kind of shut it down. But when you start to be aware that they're also souls that chose us as parents, not only so
Yes.
that we can guide them, but so that they can teach us other aspects. And I think Brooke, my son, is your daughter is also a great testament to that.
Mhm.
And I remember is actually we're here at Pablo Moreno's office here,
Yes.
and it all started with the World Shaker Conference.
That's right. Thank you, Pablo.
Yeah, thank you, Pablo. But it really started there because I was invited to speak there. You came as a guest. Brooke was there, and we opened up that event through me coming out, and then the breath work, and then Annabelle as well. And then lunch happens,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden, I think you come with her and get us introduced, and all of a
Yes.
sudden this young lady is standing in front of me as still as can be, which
Right,
to me,
right.
that's a barometer. It's like she's just in her body, she's listening to me, she's not moving, she is like listening to me, responding, not reacting. And I was
Right.
like, wow, oh, this is lovely, this is great, and so she inquired about the curriculum, and then obviously that then begins the process. And that was like literally like 9 months ago, 9, 10 months ago,
Wow,
you know
already
yeah,
that
yeah.
is
And
amazing.
then the arc of that was really interesting because you obviously spoke at an event recently at the same country club.
Yeah, full circle.
Full circle, nine
Full
months sort of
circle.
rebirth, time period here, and there you were, in front of 100 or so plus people at a NAREP event, which is a National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Agents. And I thought the optics was quite extraordinary. And the optics for me, like what I'm seeing as well as what I'm hearing. You are along with two other women, so there's a total of three of you. And no knock on anybody else, but vibrationally, the way you sounded, like it literally felt like you were coming deep from the soul, from the heart, within your body.
Mm.
And it just and I could feel people like what is this, because it's not a normal frequency.
Mhm.
What I like to say is like when someone speaks from the heart, it's like it attunes the other hearts.
Right.
Everyone's like, what
Right.
is this? Because mostly people live here
Correct.
in the mental construct of things, and it's like when we're at this point, it's like static, it's like white noise. And
Right,
when
right.
people are speaking from there, it's just noise. But when someone comes from the soul, from the heart, from their body, from an embodiment place, it's like, what is this? It's like we're all waiting to find others who are like that, because I think the greatest of the treasures for being human is not to live here.
Mhm.
It's to really understand that we're a soul and a body, that the human heart when it opens is why we've come down to this earth. And so I thought it was a
Yes.
beautiful display of seeing you just speak in the way that you were doing. And I thought it was just, again, a great testament to the work that you've done.
Yes, I felt, I've been to a lot of events, and, I've done quite a few
Sure.
events, and I feel calm.
Yeah.
So if I think if that's any word or anything that I could use to describe, I feel calm.
Mhm.
Like something has settled in my being, something
Yes.
has settled in my body. And I want to go back to when you mentioned it's the people that feel like everything is okay and they're
Mhm.
good,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
and that was what was happening. Like the businesses are good, the money's coming in,
Yeah.
and I'm doing things. And sometimes it's those people, like they need to dig in.
Yeah.
I needed to dig in,
Mhm.
and I didn't even realize it. I didn't
Sure.
realize where I was at when I was there.
Mm.
And now, like, I have this sense of, because see, here is the bottom line is money. It's great. Like, it's
Absolutely.
great to have and, to do good things with. And I say all the time, when we don't have it, it becomes a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like
Totally.
life
Totally.
becomes a
Yeah.
problem because
Yeah.
it's the currency of our world. Like that
Yes.
is how our world operates.
Yeah.
But money and doing, it's not going to bring you that internal happiness
Mhm.
and that feeling in yourself of satisfaction.
Yes.
And so what's happened now is, I realize without a doubt that, what is for me, it will be.
Yes.
And and I wish because we always do that, right? Like, oh my goodness, I wish I would have known this
Yeah.
in my
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
20s.
Yeah.
I wish I would have started then. Like, I do that to myself. I think we all do. But I know without a doubt that had I done this, like this is the foundation of life.
Mhm.
This should be the foundation of any business
Mhm.
out there. This is the foundation of having any business really prosper, because when you're good within yourself and you're
Mhm.
steady
Mhm.
and you're in your body, like you say,
Mhm.
because there's a big difference. I mean, I've been all over the place. And when you're in your body, you're able to hold more
Yes.
and do more and see more. And guess what? You're working less.
Mhm.
And so that's why I think one of
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody was asking, like, how do you balance, everything? And it's so ironic because see, people are talking about how do you balance, how do you balance? When you're really digging in and doing this work, it's not even a question because it happens.
Right.
It happens. And I'm hoping. I know that we'll probably dive in a little bit too. You had me do some interesting things during the process. I had to change habits of mine.
Mhm.
And let me tell you, those are going to be lifelong habits now.
That's
Like I'm going to continue and keep doing what I'm doing. I had gained a lot of weight during the process of breaking my ankle
Mhm.
due to lack of mobility and things like that, like
Sure.
not feeling well. And so just naturally, not even trying, I think I've lost maybe 13, 14 pounds of that
Nice.
already.
That's amazing.
So, and I think also the more we carry energetically
Mhm.
and the more our bodies show it. There's a segment where you talk about, and I'm not going to go through all
No. Yeah.
the,
Sure.
all the
No.
curriculum or anything
Yeah.
like that, but there's a segment, where you're talking about the next step in in business and entrepreneurship, and it talks about the body,
Mhm.
where you have to make your body as strong as possible in order to be able to have the capacity
Yeah.
to reach certain levels. And I wholeheartedly believe that because I've dove more into that to try, to getting that moving, and it's helping me in other ways. Like without a doubt,
Mm.
I know this next decade. of my business and life will be the best decade
Yes.
ever.
That's
Like
amazing.
without a doubt
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
And like saying that, it brings me so much
Yeah,
joy
I can see that.
because it's like the things that, we've gone through as entrepreneurs
Mm-hmm.
and in life. And I'm looking at it and now it's like the pieces are coming together.
Mm-hmm.
It's so profound
Yeah.
that I can't even explain it.
Yeah.
But I know it without a doubt.
Yeah.
Like now I have the tools. I have those missing tools.
Yes.
And it feels so amazing.
I can feel like the exude. Well, because I think on our last session we kind of touched on that. Like, you already have the skill. I mean, you couldn't have gone to where you've gotten to without that skill set. But now you insert this new operating system that
Yes,
that you now
yes.
have of being able to see deeper, being able to be emotionally intelligent. You already had certainly emotional intelligence, but I think the one of the things that I was really I was like, wow, because you sort of teach on emotional
Yes,
intelligence, and then
yes.
and you watch the module on emotional intelligence. You said you
Yes.
took like 7 pages of notes.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so there is, but it's like a different operating system that you'll now be able to access. And to your point, I think when people talk about balance, and I don't really feel balance really exists. It'd be a very boring life to be
Mhm.
balanced. And I think what your languaging is like when you're hyper present
Right.
in your day to day, then every conversation is enriching.
Yes,
It's
there you go.
alive, it's rich, it has significance, it feels complete, and from that standpoint, you go to bed and it's like, I had a very fulfilling day,
Correct.
and you could punch 14 hours in,
Mhm.
and it just doesn't quite feel like that because you're also in a deep flow state.
Yes.
Right. Because, when you're in deep dialogues with your team or people, it's like this Bible says, where two or more are gathered, there I am. You're in the flow, you're in the spirit, you're not distracted, you're
Mhm.
there. And I think that then starts to open up so much,
It
right? Because all of a
does.
sudden something surfaces, a great idea, but you're so vigilant in the moment that you can spot these things. And all of a
Yes,
sudden you
yes.
get this emerger of divine intelligence happening everywhere. And so I hear you. And I also want to say, because you said about, like, had I had this earlier, like, what could it be?
Yes.
But also I think, like, the consideration, one, we have the heirs now. You have your daughters, I have my
Correct. That's
sons.
true.
But I think the other point of it too, it's like sometimes people that we're obviously heading, like, as an example, into the renewable energy space, and people want to demonize the oil industry. But it's like the oil industry was needed to get to this renewable energy, right? It was needed. So, like, God always uses what even appears to be bad for the good,
Right,
and
right.
even your last journey of getting to where you are now financially, think about now the opportunity that you have because of that financial foundation
That's
that will
true.
now allow you to take this new operating system and, like, wow, what can I now do with sort of a starting point of financial abundance? How can I leverage this now in a different way? So
Yes.
so it's like, nothing is not for naught, as I like to say.
Yes, that is a very good way of looking at it, and it is true. I mean, our journey, it serves a
Yeah.
purpose. It serves a purpose. I do think, and I'm very grateful for our youth that
Hmm.
are beginning from a place of awareness. So, like you mentioned, our kids,
Hmm.
they're already aware of so many things, and they're doing things very differently. And I think that will cause them to like propel
Yeah.
at a better rate without so much pain.
Yeah.
So, without so much pain, because, I know I caused myself quite a bit along my,
Sure.
journey of in business. And, I think that you mentioned the emotional intelligence, module, and it hit home for me because, yes, I feel that as entrepreneurs, we have to have and possess a certain amount of that.
Hmm.
And in part of it, it talked about saying the capacity to, like, especially, I mean, men, I suppose as well, but especially us women,
Absolutely.
like, we tend to be nurturers, and, I want to do things for everybody. And I'm like saying yes to everything. And yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll be there. Yes, yes, yes. And then I realized, like, our ability to say no opens up space for us to see and receive higher instruction.
Oh.
And that was so profound for me, because I was like, Jennifer, you've got to start saying no more,
Mm.
because, that was part of my wounding as well. Like, yes, yes, yes. But then I'm not opening up that ability to receive that higher instruction because I'm too busy all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm, everywhere and doing everything. And it's just, it's like I said, hard to explain, but it's the downloads
Yeah.
of those little things that they can make a massive, massive difference on your life. Like, tremendous, because now I'm, like, no, thanks, for the opportunity, but
Yeah.
so I can evaluate it more, and, like you said, kind of sit with it and see more. So
Mm-hmm.
it's thing, and I thought, okay, so here we are, yes, I can teach it, but then I'm not living that part of it.
Yeah. Understand.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not living that part of it. And it just was so eye-opening for me. And
Mm.
it's actually, I even feel more calm.
Right.
I feel I have more space. I'm working less.
Mm-hmm.
Things are going better,
Mm-hmm.
and you just see more. So our youth, I think that they're sharp. They're starting from, like, a lot of them from a better place.
Yeah.
And
I feel like what you're saying there too, with like the way we presented the emotional talent, the intelligence module, and I think just throughout the entire roundtable curriculum, I feel like what Annabelle and I were able to do was to essentially put into language sort of the unseen,
yes,
and but once we do that, it's like it kind of crystallizes it for you, like, oh, that's what I've been feeling.
exactly.
Right. And so that's to your point. It's like, I think the deeper we go, and as I like to say, the more shadows that we integrate, the more you can see.
Exactly. And it takes you deep into it. There is nothing more challenging than, well, at least, for me, than looking in the mirror sometimes, and saying, well, that's me,
Hmm.
right? Like, we talked about triggers a lot during,
Hmm.
this whole thing. And I began to realize, well, okay, Jennifer, where are you not showing up in that way? Or where, like, it's just so profound when you
Yeah.
start to take a look and take personal responsibility for everything that is in our life, rather than walking around and saying, well, this person did that, and they did this, and they. It's that personal responsibility and that awareness, where it just made me realize, it's all you, Jennifer. It is
Mm.
all you.
Yeah, so it's just to kind of also help with the language a bit here for everyone listening. One of the things that I always say, that for people wanting to find out about the round tables, we give you the tools, the language, the framework, and the orientation. The
Yes.
orientation is just about going inward, right? But like what you're saying there, one of the frameworks, in order to really understand that, it's like, like there's an understanding, like, I am you, you are me, all is love,
Right, right.
and when you understand that we live in a construct, in a universe, as I like to say, in a you inverse,
Mhm.
right? And when you start to realize that essentially all the people in your movie is you inverse, it's
Exactly.
you shadow, it's the triggering aspects of it. And once the human population really begins to understand that, I think it would cause a real dramatic shift. I write about it in the Clarion Call because we are just always projecting our own sort of stuff onto other people. So whenever we see somebody and it triggers us, it's your own projection. That's really like when you look at one of the cornerstones of spiritual psychology, as you know now that you got really deeply introduced to that, it's like most of the time, 90 something percent of the time, it's essentially a reflection. It's a
Yes.
projection about how you relate with yourself, with others, or with God. So
Yes.
whenever anything irritates us, it's just an opportunity to go, okay, where am I doing the same thing with myself, with others, or
Exactly.
with God? And I know that during some of our sessions, that's the part that's like, it's like you get kind of stunned by that, a
Yes.
bit like, oh shit.
Yes.
Okay, oh my God, there it is. I see. Oh, I did it there. Oh my God, especially on the big ones, when you really
Yeah.
get like a
Those
big
big triggers.
triggers.
Absolutely. Those big triggers. And I feel like when we would talk, you would feel the shift, right? Like
Yes.
in my energy.
Mm-hmm.
And just like ask questions, and then it's like, aha,
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Let me evaluate. Because part of this whole journey was, um, why are see, we expect people to sometimes show up for us in a way. We have expectations. At least,
Sure.
I used to. And what I realized is, well, of course they're not going to show up for me in a certain way. I'm not showing up for myself.
Mm,
So if I'm not showing up for myself, how would we expect, anybody else to show up for us? It's things of that nature. And showing up for yourself. And a lot of people, what I also, realize, there's a certain point when you dive into this where it does become, let's say, difficult,
mm-hmm.
challenging. Maybe that's a better
Yeah.
word. And it's sometimes you want to like put, one toe in and you kind of take it out because you're like, I don't know, like this is challenging to look at.
Yeah.
And when you dive into this, and I think what people like, the thing that I can say is you have to be ready to change things.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be ready for there to be a shift in your life. And you have to be ready to lose people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think at one point I reached out to you and I said, this can be a really lonely journey
Mm-hmm.
because you lose people and your circle will become, very small for a while.
Yeah.
But then guess what? You find the others,
Mm-hmm.
as somebody mentioned
Yeah.
the other day. And it creates space because you do that work and you emerge differently. And it creates that space for other people that are on that same frequency
Mm-hmm.
to come in and be a part of your life.
That's awesome.
And so, for those that, because some people will begin something, right, or try something, and then they don't want to go and continue it because it can be really painful to look at,
Yeah.
especially when we're looking in the mirror
Yeah.
and it doesn't look super pretty.
Mm-hmm.
You want to look away, but you have to
Absolutely.
keep looking at it and going through it and, emerging. And I mean, there's always going to be
Sure.
work and layers to do, but it's clearing all of that out. And so I realized that like midway through,
Mm-hmm.
this whole thing. And I thought, okay, there's a choice, move forward or revert back.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always that point where there's a choice. And then you take that forward step and, that's the point where it can get really lonely.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like that's one of the great things that I appreciated about our work together. And as you were going through the mentorship, is that you went all the way. Because some people will start it and it's like, oh, but you've already, it feels to me, crossed that threshold. You've made that commitment. I think obviously with Brooke going as much as
Yes,
she's
there's
been.
no going back.
Yeah, and at some point that's what happens. At
Yes.
some point it's like, okay, like there's no
Yes.
more going back. I'm too deep inside the cave now.
You've seen too much.
Yes.
You can't unsee it.
Exactly.
You can't unfeel it.
Yeah.
there is no going back at some point.
Yeah. And Annabelle and I have talked about putting a little like, danger before you enter
Yes.
sign, because it will, it's going to cause, like you said, people to come and fall away. And it's not the end of the story though, because I've seen it where they emerge back at some point where they're like, okay, I'm unhappy about something right now, but then all of a sudden, a year or 2 years later, they're on there and they come back and say, oh my God, because you did that, it catalyzed my own journey. And as I like to say, it's like we're just all unconsciously driving each other towards higher evolution.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
It's like
true.
sometimes, we have medicine to give, sometimes we have medicine to take. Just try to be as graceful as you can on either side of it.
Yeah, that's correct.
Because that's what's going to happen. You're catalyzing people now to go, okay, I understand, and I'm going to kind of begin my own journey. Sometimes when I go to these events, I'll have people come to me and like, do you remember when you said so and so at that event and da 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 da? That started me off, So I love what we're sort of kind of sharing with everybody. It is a deeply, very powerful process to go into these spaces inside of us. And I think one thing that makes what we teach very unique, I've been languaging it as like we get your psychology right, but also your biology right. Right? It's people don't really get it at on the spiritual level maybe, or people that are spiritual and they're on their journey. The body is the final frontier.
Yes.
Okay.
It definitely is.
The body is
this is it.
Yeah, this is it, because if we want our soul, our spirit to really animate the biology in its full potential, we have to, one, understand that we're in a labyrinth, and especially here in the United States, where we're being polluted, we're being poisoned. It's nothing but toxicity everywhere, from what we're eating, from what we're drinking, to what we're consuming mentally. And all of that energetic is stuck in the nervous system.
Yes.
So that's why a big part of what I love, when you're like, hey, I'm in, I'm all in. I'm like, okay, well, here's the blueprint.
Yes.
Here's the water we need. Here's the light we need. Here's the earth we need. And you then started.
There's the cold shower in the morning.
There's the cold shower. Yeah, don't forget the cold shower.
Francisco, I'm paying the bill. Why am I taking a cold shower in the morning?
Yeah, but it really starts because our bodies have a natural detoxification system. And the first piece that I help people go through is to kind of turn on the body's latent systems. And when we get light, water, earth, cold, it starts to turn it on, and then once we turn it on a bit and its natural functions start to come online, then we really start to dive into the gut and getting the gut right, and getting your sleep right and getting your breathing right, because all of those things are playing in. And as we start to get the body right, and then we start to clear up the traumas and we start to handle the triggers, it's like, this is what we call embodiment, where it's like the light of your soul is literally starting to animate the biology as it was intended, and as you had the agreement with God before you had a face. There was an agreement that you had, and it's like, okay, Jennifer, you're here to do this. I need you because I'm gonna prepare you genetically to hold this light for the world as a reference point. But in order to do that effectively, you need to sort of rewire all the trauma, the ego complexes, get your body right. And as that you start to do that, that's what embodiment is. And I think that's what I saw at NAREP is a level of embodiment where everyone was captivated. It's like, what's going on over there?
It's so funny because I had to, when we began this journey together, and you were going through basically the curriculum of what was required to get, start getting my body back. Let's just say it was, I never really did the work for that. And so it was a challenge for me. And the more that I read and I looked into what you were having me do and what you were sending me, it's literally it's so like you mentioned, what they put out there, it's almost all a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like everything that we're being taught by, the food industry, and it's all a lie. Like our health, and we're just at risk.
Mm-hmm.
It's like nobody cares out there.
Yeah.
And, I'm reading all of this and I'm like, oh my goodness, I've literally been doing everything the wrong way. Like my belief system on what I thought was healthy is not healthy. And it's so funny because I started taking the supplements. My morning routine, that you gave me was extended. But that's okay. I got up a little bit earlier and I put the effort and the work into doing it. And then little by little, the sleep. So,
Yeah.
I'm watching.
The aura ring for everybody there.
I know. And I'm doing these things, and little by little, I started to feel better. My mind didn't feel, as cloudy anymore. I had more energy. I was waking up with more energy. I went back to the doctor, and when I had broke my ankle, they told me, you're going to have a lot of surgeries. That's just the reality of your situation. 3-4 surgeries. This is going to be, like years of a recovery. And I went back because of everything that, I've been doing with the supplements, the movement, and the roadmap,
the fascial system,
the fascial system, like what you gave me to do. I don't think I'm going to have the next surgery.
Amazing.
Like that's where I think it's at. So see, that's the ability for our bodies to heal itself when we're doing these things, these practices. It's incredible. It's incredible. And so I think that's the point that it's at, and then feeling better, sleeping better, having more energy. My brain, like the decisions we make even change.
Right.
The way that we, like hold ourselves and feel changes. It's a game changer.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you, again, just for everything, because it's life changing, and it's so hard to sit on here because there's so many little pieces of what happens, right? During the process, like it's hard to sit on here and pinpoint every single little thing. Like there's no way to do it.
Yeah.
It happens. Like it just all sort of, if you put the work in to do it, it just all sorts of, it comes together.
Well, you're also like, it's been even challenging for me to try to tell and market this thing, because I know I'm holding something of immense value.
And it can't put words. It's like they're the words,
Yeah.
It's the words that it's hard to put in. The only way I think that like to describe it is there's a roadmap for a better way, like a better way of living, a better way of doing business. And I know with my heart, soul, and entire being that this is the way. This is definitely the way.
Wow. Thank you.
And I wish I would have known this. Like I said, it would have saved me a whole lot of pain a decade ago. But there's a reason for everything.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, our children are beginning in a very different way. Yeah. And, I think that our future with young entrepreneurs is really bright. They're waking up, and they're beginning in a different way than our way. But that is the only way that I can really describe it. It cleans you up from inside out.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like your body, it's just everything. And you come out like feeling stronger, happier, more clear, more grounded, more calm. And we're in a turbulent real estate market.
Sure.
And I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
We're good.
Totally. Well, yeah, I talked about it yesterday at this market update that I do, but it's like, because I was kind of referencing you at the NAREP thing about how you felt. It's like, look, it's not that we're working less and that we're in this like, oh, it's just surrender. It's like, no, it's an active surrender.
Yes.
Like we're working, and but in that surrender, let it be God's will. Like I'm gonna put in massive effort, and I'm gonna do it, and not this like stressed out urgent.
Exactly.
It's like it's calm, and it's direct, it's intentional. And when you do that, again, it opens up doors, because if we get too much in the stress and the urgency, then we can't see. And in every crisis, it's just about, where is the trend? Where is the opportunity? But if you're too bogged down, where your gut feels terrible, you're not breathing right, you're not sleeping right, you're drinking, then you can't see the trend. And in order to create wealth in this life, you just got to be able to know how to manage debt, and how to spot the trend. And if you can do that, and I think what this program, this curriculum helps you do, is just that. Be the anchor in the midst of chaos.
Yes.
And especially in this industry right now, that becomes a beacon and a toroidal field that will bring stuff to you, because leaders right now are not able to hold that.
Yes, exactly. And people feel it.
Yeah.
So, and that is what I think, real estate professionals, we are in a turbulent market.
Yeah.
And clients can feel it. They can feel when you're centered, when you're calm, when you're taking that time to evaluate things, to make good decisions, versus when you're, all over and turbulent and nervous, and you're just not centered in yourself. Like, it comes out everywhere.
Oh yeah, it can be felt easily.
And I've always felt like I had a good perception of people, meaning like I could read people. And I think a lot of it actually, now that I've dove into all of this, came from places of like wounding, right, where I was on the alert and lived my life sort of on alert and very attuned to, people.
Sure.
But when you do this work, you can, and I don't know even how to describe this, but you can literally feel where people are at.
Yeah.
You can feel them when you're talking to them. And then when you start feeling where they're at, you start understanding more about maybe their actions or their behavior. And it changes the game, because you see and feel them. And it's now at a different level where I can talk to somebody and I can know, you can almost feel their woundings. You can feel them. And so I know that's also indescribable.
Yeah,
people
yeah,
are like,
yeah.
okay,
Oh, sure.
Jennifer's got nuts.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's so true, because I think that look, there's like, for me, that's what I call it, guidance, because I feel like people pay me because I can see in the dark.
There you go. It's like seeing in the dark.
Yeah, like it's like there's the energetics, and we can pick it up because it's vibrational in nature. And I think you're an empath, like I'm an empath, and develop this sort of clairsentient ability where it's like I'm in a field, and it's literally like coming into my energetic body, and I feel it. And it's like, and then obviously, sitting with thousands of people at this point, like I'll say something, and it lands, it hits a target. It's like, oh wow, okay, how is that person just picking that up? But now, if we're virtuous, and all we want for other people is growth and evolution, and it's not self-serving, it's like, now you can develop a different kind of leadership, because people will come to you because they know that he doesn't have an agenda other than he wants to help me evolve and grow. And then the type of people then will start to surround you in this way. Where
I'm going to reference Module 9.
Yeah, we will get to that one for sure, because this is where I'd like to take us as we close this thing off, because I know we not could go forever. But what I'm most, now that you said, look, I'm so grateful in the fact that now I have this new toolbox, this treasure of things that I can now apply. And as you know, a big aspect of what Giving Business Soul is here to do is to reawaken the merchant archetype. An archetype that essentially has been lost from our humanity. And through, what I was able to find, it's like I'm rebringing that forward, so that individuals like yourself that say, hey, I see this, and now I want to utilize this merchant archetype, which is simply a higher way of doing business. Is calling on this archetype to see, okay, I want to establish business that has a higher purpose, that it wants to do good in the world. That's what I'm most intrigued with, being by your side now and going, what kind of businesses is Jennifer Brooke going to begin that are going to be for the greater good?
Right,
You know,
right.
when you start to put that grail, that
Yes.
philanthropy, the soul into business, you know. So tell us a little bit about, you know, what are you, what, a little bit how you understand, you know, that whole concept, and what is the future hold for you now that you have this sort of merchant archetype understanding, and merging business and philanthropy being sort of the masculine and feminine poles coming together.
So I know for sure, like I just expressed that this is going to be the strongest
Mm-hmm.
decade, of my life. I can feel it because I have different tools now. And I feel like the one thing that, because as I was reading through, all of this and doing this work, whenever you start something from a place of giving and from
Mm-hmm.
like from the heart, it's going to flourish because it has good roots.
Yes.
And I think that the thing that saved me during my traumas, trials, and tribulations is that I've always done things from the heart, meaning, I've always had that intention behind it where, I'm not looking at, oh my goodness, what is the next dollar that I'm going to make?
Mm-hmm.
But with this new, let's say, blueprint and these tools, I feel that there's going to be a lot more discretion. And that is the one thing, I feel it's very important in business to be aware of ourselves, our woundings, and most indiscretion comes from a place of wounding. And it woke me up to understand why I did certain things, why I didn't do certain things. And that discretion, I feel, it's going to change the game because when you're more careful, with yourself, with your others, with the whole, and you're more selective in the things that you do, the people that you work with,
Yeah.
because it's all a selection, right? And now the knowing that I know the future, and I'm not sure yet exactly, what it will look like, but I know it's going to be one of love, of discretion, and of a lot more awareness
Mm-hmm.
as I'm moving through it
Yeah.
for myself and for other people too. Because sometimes with our own indiscretion, like we don't even realize how we affect the whole
It's
sometimes
so true.
because we don't want to,
Right.
but we don't understand how we did.
Yeah.
And so now, I have that new level of awareness. And it's so, I know I've said throughout this whole thing, it's hard to describe because it just is.
Yeah. It's like a
It really,
discernment.
yeah, it really just is. It's hard to describe, but it's a discernment, and I feel like that's what's going to happen, moving forward.
Yeah. I love that because what you're saying, it's like, you know, when you don't understand the essence of the beginning, right?
Yes,
And you don't have discretion, you don't have discernment, how that actually sort of catalyzes other things around the whole.
around the
There's like a
whole.
chain reaction
Hmm.
that's like that thing then catalyzes that, and it becomes this really entangled web of stuff. And it's like, oh shit, how do I clean this up, you know?
Yes,
And had we
yes.
just had more discretion and discernment at the beginning and the essence of that beginning, to make sure that it's in the right soil, that the
Hmm.
energetics of the start were of love and generosity and contribution and purpose. It's like now you got the proper soil and seed, and then and then when it begins to bloom, it's not tangling into the shadows and into these different things and causing people, because like just you bring, let's say you start this business all for money, and then you start bringing people to come and work for that thing. You're
Right.
taking them away,
Hmm.
from being available for something higher, because they're in, you see what I'm
Exactly.
saying? So it's all so
It
connected.
is all connected. It is all connected.
Yeah.
And that's what I think a lot of the time when we're building businesses or, running businesses,
Mm-hmm.
we forget to, at least I did,
Yeah.
that it's all connected. Like those little choices and decisions on what we are doing daily, or, you know, even allowing daily, it affects the whole.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot more discretion now, and I understand a lot more, and I understand why I did, you know, certain things that I did, and owning that,
It's huge.
you know, owning that with the people in, like I'd had to own that with my entire, you know, staff.
Yeah, totally.
And that's a tough thing to do.
Mm-hmm. So it
You
requires
know?
humility.
It does. It requires a lot of it. And, you know, you talk about that as well, that you could, like, there's no wisdom without it.
That's right.
I
remember
remember,
that.
you know,
Yeah.
that hit me so, I don't want to say hard, you know, what is profoundly,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
There's no wisdom
Mm-hmm.
without humility.
That's right. That's,
And
That came to me in Romania when I was in Romania. I remember like I was traveling over there, and it was like humility is the storehouse for wisdom.
Yes,
All
and it
the
is.
all the great kings in the Bible had wisdom at some point, and then they become pride and arrogant, and they think, oh, it's me, I'm doing it all, and that pride. That's why I say the pride before the fall.
Yeah, the pride before the fall. And that's why I think that because I moved through everything, I think it was May, June, and July. And I think August 4th is when I did, I think the 4th is when I did the last
Okay.
session.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, really profound, because it talked about, it kind of pulled it all together, where it talked about, you know, with the Grail, and you can't ask, we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we're going to do? Like, what are we going to do for others? What are we going to do for humanity? What are we going to do to make a difference? You know, not like asking, well, what am I going to get? What am I going to get?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much of that already in the
Yeah.
business world, right? Like, it exists everywhere.
Everywhere.
And then you start, and that's opening your heart as well to say, what am I going to give? How am I going to give of myself? Like, how will I give more? And then that opens things up to come, and, you know, then you're suddenly getting a whole lot more. It's
That's the
it's really
path,
something else.
That's the pathway into a higher purpose and a higher life. And as you guys can clearly hear and see, I don't even know where we are in time, but I feel like
I have no idea. Do we?
Oh
do
yeah,
we,
we're at 58 minutes. Okay.
Oh, we are at 58
Oh, look
minutes.
at that.
Oh my
pretty good.
God!
That's
Look
great.
at
Well
that.
done. Well done. I had no idea, and I'm looking at this time. I'm like, oh, there it is. So yeah. So I think to just kind of close it up here. I mean, I think from my vantage point, Jennifer, thank you. You know, really thank you for coming into the Giving Business Soul community, the curriculum, doing it as fully as you did, because it does require that kind of commitment. And I can only imagine, you know, the people listening to this now and in the future, you know, you have come here for a greater purpose, a greater significance. And to see you now really bringing all this together and say, okay, I'm clear. Okay, I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna now listen to the instruction that I'm being guided internally, and go and begin this higher thing. When individuals like yourself, of your caliber, of your pedigree, of your degree, that's when we get the world to really move. You know, so far, Giving Business Soul has been working with a lot of entrepreneurs at certain levels, but now to really come into sort of the level of leadership that you hold, it's going to give permission for others. You know, it's like one thing that I'm crazy, but then you now coming over here and say, hey, now there's two of us, you know, and then that's what gives permission to others. You know, it's actually not the guy holding the flag that's the most important. It's really the first one that says, I believe what he believes.
Right.
You know, you're willing to come out of the crowd and say, hey, I believe what he believes, and this totally makes sense. And then on another person that was kind of looking at me going, oh, that's really interesting, but I don't know. And all of a sudden, you get a movement. And I feel like my you know, when I was recently in Peru, I was there 7 years almost to the day. And when I went there the first time 7 years ago, you know, I cried and I prayed and I gave offerings to the land, and I said, help me understand what Giving Business Soul is. You know, I didn't really have a full picture of that. I just knew it was significant. I knew what I was holding was special. And through the last 7 years, you know, this seed that I've been holding broke surface. you know, and it started to kind of begin to move the field and inform, and it became much more clear. And this last time that I went, it was now like the merchants are waking up. Now it's the merchants, you know, and you know, before I went to Peru, we launched the Clarion Call, the merchants to, you know, that remember, and that was sort of that, and then I was already working with you, and then when I got back, literally like 5, 6 higher level business people reached out, and I was like, okay, so this is what I was being shown when I'm in Peru, and it's like individuals again of like your degree are going, okay. Like for a little what, because, you know, we have a certain amount of discernment when you're a higher caliber leader. It's like, you know, that new age stuff, that spiritual stuff, you know, and I got sort of mixed in the mix there. And this is not a new age, you know, spirit, you know, it's a really integrated, grounded perspective of psychology, you know, and so it's not like, I'm not saying that psychedelics are not important, that breath work is not important. I'm not saying that, but it's not it. It's a portion of it, but it's not the whole thing.
Right.
You know?
I think that, so see, there's, when you start diving into all of this, there's a lot out there where you can go and people will, you know, try to wake you up or show you certain things. Okay. There's things out there, but the difference is this moves you through it, meaning you're moved through it and you emerge from it a different individual versus just going for, you know, like a weekend somewhere, whatever, and being woke up. Well, that's great. Now what do you do? Now what do you do with that? Right? So it's like beginning to end. And I think that anybody that, you know, is diving into this or that wants to dive into this, you have to pay attention and open your heart and mind to everything, meaning really look at it, really contemplate it, like really evaluate it. Because when you do that, like when you're shown these things, and when you do that, you will know that it is the way.
Great.
You will know. And that is the only way that I can describe it, because they might look at like a little piece of it and then say, oh, you know what, that is, you know, whatever. But it's everything combined together. So you have to go through it. Like you have to go through it and open your mind, your heart, and your soul to it and really receive it. And that's where you're going to find the gifts, because you will see.
Yeah.
Like you will see without a doubt. And then other things, they start to make sense.
Yes.
Other things that, you know, are happening in the world, other ideals, other belief systems, that because you know why they're there. You know why that occurred. You know why that happened. You know, like the foundation. It's just something that you have to do and go in all the way. Like go all the way through and open your heart up to it. Because if you don't do that, then, you know, you're going to just evaluate it from a very different place.
Yeah. It's half-hearted, and half-heartedness, we've had enough of that in the world.
We definitely have.
So I think in closing, just a quick plug. So I will be having an event. I know you're coming to that. Yes, so thank you. It's going to be August 26th. It's called the Ascension Summit. Where we're going to really go into this in a very practical and a deeper way. So if anyone's there watching, listening, and you love what you heard today, certainly click on my bio or send me a message. And I feel like in closing again, like I mean, the way I feel it again, like kind of like I already put it into words a bit, but thank you, because I don't know if you really understand the significance of this that you've done for myself, for Giving Business Soul. I really appreciate it. And for anyone else that is listening and wants to inquire about the curriculum, this path of getting your psychology and your biology right, send me a message, reach out through the Giving Business Soul website. And anything in closing, Jennifer?
I need to thank you, because you have changed my daughter's life. You have changed my life. You have had a dramatic impact on me, and you embraced me during a time of turbulence in my life. And I'm very grateful for that. I see so much more now. And so I'm the one I need to thank you. And I know that I have, and I do again. And I feel much more calm and stable and happy and aware and good and fulfilled. And there's really no explaining it, other than the words that I've attempted to use during this podcast, which doesn't do it justice, but I did the best that I could to describe it and explain everything. And so, thank you for your love, your commitment, your heart, and everything that you've given to me and my daughter, because you've done that for not only me and my daughter, but my family, my lineage, my past lineage, my future lineage, my entire organization. And so I'm very grateful.
Wow. I received that. That feels really good. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in and for being a part of this first Transformative Leader podcast. Thank you. Much love,
Thank you,
everybody.
guys.